Hi, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Briefcase. So, hopefully, you've caught up on a few episodes that we've been releasing every 2 weeks, and you have found some of the guests that we have spoken to phenomenal. So, if you haven't, and this is your first ever episode you've watched, please go on to Behind the Briefcase on YouTube or LinkedIn or Spotify, wherever on earth it is, and have a watch back at some of the previous episodes. Honestly, the people that we have are inspirational and motivational, and learning about the career paths and everything like that. There's no doubt about it. You are going to leave with golden nuggets that you can transform into your own life, your own growth, and taking you into the future in a very positive way. If you aren't following us on LinkedIn or on YouTube or Spotify, then please go over to those channels and subscribe, because we always give out snippets, always give out bits of advice. So on that basis, you'd be a fool not to. Look at the caliber of people we're bringing to the table. So give us a follow, give us a like, and make sure you leave comments. It's always good for the guests that come on. They're not charging us. So it's always good for them to receive comments underneath the post to know that what they've given you is insightful and will help you with your own career path. Now, if this is your first time to Behind the Briefcase, you may be wondering what the heck is it all about? Well, what we do is we look for people who have been successful in their career, people who have been risk takers, people who have achieved considerable heights, and we try and dig behind the briefcase because, like me and many of the guests, you may get to see the face of what people want you to see on LinkedIn and on Instagram and all these other social medias. But behind all that, what people sometimes miss is the relentless work ethic it takes to actually run businesses and the gambles in life that you take in order to achieve that success. So it's always good to look deeper behind the mask, and that's what this is about. Now, today's guest was one I thought we would never get. Within the health and social care industry, if you mention this man's name, you will know it. You just will. He's everywhere. But you never see him on podcasts. You never really see him on any other, blogs or videos or things like that, because he has a fantastic team that he always pushes forward to do that sort of things for him. So he's actually a really intelligent, academic, gifted person who knows his stuff, but won't normally go in front of a camera to do that. But he said yes to this, which is a huge surprise. So I am absolutely excited about this. And if you haven't heard the name Tony Thiru before, or Fulcrum Services, then you're really going to want to listen to this all the way through. And if you are someone who has heard the name, but you've never heard him speak, well, you're in for a big surprise, because today he's doing it and we've got him with us. So, Tony, first of all, thank you very much for actually deciding that you would do this, and for letting people hear what you've got to say. Well,
thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for your very kind words. It's great to always speak with you. So that's why I didn't hesitate 1 minute to come back to you on right away. But thank you for having me on your show.
Love it. Tony, in terms of your background and what you currently do you want to just give people a little synopsis, a quick synopsis of it?
Thank you, Paul. So I have a degree in a subject which no one's ever heard of and probably never will, called econometrics. I'm a graduate in econometrics. I've never done a day of econometrics since graduating, just as well, because most of the economies are probably safe on the back of it. So ever since then, I started working in various sectors, from media, advertising, travel, recruitment, and retail, and so on and so forth. So I've had exposure across a number of different sectors, but it has always boiled down to one of two things: either helping someone set up a business or start up a business, or turn that business around. So that's been my background, but across a number of different sectors, until I discovered care about 15 years ago. when I was asked to do the same in terms of turnaround a group of care homes, which got into a bit of bother back then. So yeah, so since then I've been in care, and that's just what I've done, but not as academic as you may think I am. So yeah, I've just got that degree, which is a tick box. That's it.
But I mean, amazingly, Tony, and all the people that I've spoken to on this, and it becomes a repetitive theme, is that for some people, school didn't do it for them. And for other people, yes, they sailed through it and achieved well in the grades, but it never actually manifested into what they went on to become. And what I found in speaking to a lot of people is it's got to be about passion. So for me, the care industry, I'm very passionate about it. So it's very easy for me to wake up each morning. It's very not an easy to deal with every problem, but it's very easy for me to sort of like find motivation from somewhere to keep going. And I think when you say, you know, you came into care 15 years ago, and from there, it's almost been what you're for, is what you're about and what you do. Is that where you found your passion when you came into that industry?
Absolutely. I mean, there is something about care which I never thought existed. In fact, quite counterintuitively, I was avoiding care or healthcare, social care, etc., all along, all my life, and just discovered care. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It was, I feel, some of my friends say it's a calling, rightly or wrongly. But essentially, it's been about being able to make a difference to people's lives. And it's not just about, everyone talks about the residences or the people who use the service, if you want to call them. And it's been beyond that. It's about the staff, it's about the management teams that work behind the scenes, the providers, the other professionals who work alongside, the regulators, the commissioners, etc. So it's about delivering outcomes, adding value and delivering outcomes for each of these stakeholders. It's not just about the residents and families, but it's beyond that. And I think for me, what I've enjoyed about the whole sector is about being able to add value to every stakeholder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is the value bit that you mentioned. You know, I think as long as you always feel like you're giving value to something, it kind of drives you on. And it's a case of cut and run if you don't feel like you're giving value.
Absolutely. And the emotional payback from this is like phenomenal. I've never seen anything like it. I started my career in the media sector and web, in TV, radio, and print publications. And I thought, people say in the media sector, once the media bug has bitten you, you don't get out of it. And I thought that was the case all along. But having discovered care, I can't see myself going out of it. It's just what you see, feel, hear, and the difference that we are able to make to people, against going back 15 or so years ago, and making that difference. So I had to be involved in a group of care homes which got into trouble with the bank and the taxman, and it was a question of unwinding things. And what was really rewarding was that care is something you can't do on your own. You have to do it. It's a very collaborative thing. That's where I've seen it. In a care home, for example, there'll be the chef, the activities person, the maintenance person, the housekeeping, in addition to the carers and the nurses and the deputy manager, the manager and admin and so on. So it's very collaborative. If anyone drops the ball, it can taint the others. And equally, one person can make the difference as well. But it's even if that one person can make that difference, everyone else needs to play along. So it's the most collaborative effort that I've come across. Certainly, I've had the benefit of having been in other sectors, that I've been able to bring good practices from that, learnings from that, philosophies from that, and that has really gone a long way as well. To kind of, for example, media has been, production, for example, involves a lot of people. A lot of it's not just the actors that we see, but it's the people behind the scenes. And it's about getting everyone to work together to make that movie, that TV program, which comes out on top. So it can be a TV commercial, it can be a TV program, whatever you want, or movie. So I think that these are some of the practices that I've been able to bring together. And for me, setting up Fulcrum about 8 years ago was I thought I had to do it. This was the first time I've set up something in care as a business, but it was set up as an advisory business, which was meant to add value, a vehicle that can add value to every one of the stakeholders. That's the way it came across. And having that kind of approach has helped to, and doing it in a holistic way, helps outcomes to be delivered in a holistic way. I think that's what we've been always about, making that difference, but also doing it in a holistic way rather than, oh, here's an action plan, here's a care home or care service that has gotten into trouble, and let's do an action plan, tick all the boxes, and everything's now green. It's gone from red to green or amber to green, and everything is going to work out. So it's for me and the team at Fulcrum, it's always been about sustainability. It's about not just making a difference in that quality journey. It's not a destination that you get to and then that's it, thank you very much. But it's about sustaining it and making sure that you're keeping abreast, you sustain that. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Tony, you kind of mentioned there about media and how you brought that into sort of like what became Fulcrum, which is what we're going to delve into, because I believe that there's a lot of patterns that emerge when you do a bit of self-reflection back to go, well, actually, if I hadn't done that, this wouldn't have happened. And it's those steps of progression to never look at anything as sort of like a waste of time or a wasted opportunity. Because at some point that experience will come back and help you when you least expect it. And I think when everybody starts to do that, they start to realize whether it was, oh, I had this job in a bar. Well, yeah, that's where you learned how to do customer service, or that's where you learned how to give feedback, and that's been your development into the role that you have now. So I always say experience of real life situations, real work is going to eventually pay off at those moments when you least expect it. As I said, when you're in that conversation or you find yourself back in a situation. But I want to really go back now, because this is behind the briefcase, and it would be very amiss of me not to find out what makes the person that is in front of us now. So I'm actually going to take you right back. I want to know the Tony Thiru growing up, the childhood, the background, the environment, everything like that. Give me the timeline.
Sure. Thank you. That's probably like a night. It's going to sound like a nightmare, but so totally going back. Yes, I'm the only child in my family, and then that has its expectations. I was born in Sri Lanka. I had gone through a lot of migrations within Sri Lanka alone, because there was a civil war, so went from A to B to C. So there's quite a few migrations, and also the civil war. So which was fairly. That had its pressures, but I think that to shape things, there was hardship, there was scarcity, whether it was food, water, or even safety, that's been the journey, and that's kind of that brings a certain resilience, I suppose, and also some kind of perseverance to it, hopefully. And also some kind of understanding with working together with people within the community to kind of make things move forward so that you get to the right outcomes, staying alive, all those years ago, if that makes sense. And it's very collaborative at the same time. It's not just, so I suppose that probably laid the foundations. There were comforts that I would say, in another part of my, where, Sri Lanka, which wasn't there where I was in. And that's purely because there was a war. It's not matter of, it's not an issue of economics, but it was more, there was a situation that had to be, it was about staying alive that mattered. So that then, of course, kind of shapes people. So that also gives you an understanding. You try to, I suppose that helps you to kind of manage expectations with different parties, different segments of the population. So all that, I think, has helped, because a lot of what we do today is about managing expectations. So then left Sri Lanka, came over to the UK, did my degree, went back to Sri Lanka because that was the plan all along. But then the war kicked off again. So the only place I knew outside of Sri Lanka was the UK. My wife also studied here very briefly. She did her master's here. And so, yeah, we just thought we'll move over here and then spend a couple of years and then probably go off to China, which is the next big thing. But then we had built some relationships, networks, etc. And then we thought, oh, okay, let's have kids at some point now, and then stay over here. So hence I'm here. And yeah.
So you ended up back in the UK. So how long ago was that? What age were you when you made that move to the UK? What would be seen as a permanent move?
So this was when I was 31 years old when I moved over here,
31,
and
right.
again on the back of another war, because Sri Lanka always has this tendency to go into different situations, wars, economic wars, and so on. So yeah, so we thought we'll just come over here for a couple of years and then go back. But that was 21 years ago. Yeah.
So when you talk about you worked in media and all the other various roles that you mentioned, were they in Sri Lanka or were they in the UK?
Both in Sri Lanka and here. So again, they were. I had to be involved. I was hired as a after my degree. I went back to Sri Lanka. Got hired as a management trainee, which was a coveted position in a conglomerate which ran a TV channel, which was not, or few channels, which was not very successful. So I kind of, as a management trainee, or the lowest life form on earth in that company. So, so you kind of get to hear and see lots of different things. I had the opportunity to work in different departments, from production to engineering to sales, marketing, events, promotions, finance, HR, admin. So that was a good thing. So that gave a kind of a rounded view of things. And it also gave, like, having that bottom up, that which is something that I still use. We always go ground up. It's always been start with the at the grassroots level. That gave
Yeah.
an opportunity to kind of see what was not working well at the top. So that helped to kind of aggregate, if you want to call it, across and take a holistic view, an aggregate view of things. And that certainly helped. So yes, and I've used that to this day. Being able to understand different perspectives from different departments, bringing people together to make it happen. So yeah, so essentially I ended up turning around what I'm doing here, which is turning around
Mm.
media related businesses or media and advertising related businesses over there. Came over here, started doing the same thing. So I've been in publishing, TV and radio here as well. Niche and I think these have always been. I think I've been able to set up businesses. I don't think of them as businesses. They're delivering value to different stakeholders. You can call it a business, of course. And they tended to do well. So it's about so they ended up being leaders in their niche market segments. If that makes sense,
Yeah.
so they had their markets. So they have an advertising agency I had to set up, which is part of a Fortune 500 group, and that was a newbie, a new startup. But then it still ended up having the best clients in each category. But let's say mobile banking, insurance, it had the leading clients in that category in that agency. That was when the war was at its peak, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to move over here, because the only other place I knew was here, and stay for a couple of years. And the only thing I knew at the time was media, advertising, and business. So yeah, just did that. Started on that. Went into retail, recruitment, travel, all sorts of businesses.
Was that
To
working for other people at that
Working
point?
for other people, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Trying to, again, either set up something or turn around something for them. And then stumbled into care 15 odd years ago, where there was a group in trouble, managed to stabilize, managed to optimize that business. They had lots of operational issues, which got sorted out. So they were all bar one of their homes had a closure notice, an embargo, some kind of a restriction on admissions. So there was either an enforcement notice of some sort from the regulator, or there was a commissioning sanction, if you want to call it, or sanction from the commissioner, so which prevented the business from doing well, or prevented the care service from doing well. So then I moved on to one of the largest providers at the time, HC1, as operations director, then moved on to another company that was trying to set up a care home group before setting up Fulcrum. And that was about sustaining quality. It was all about sustaining quality all along. And it's about delivering exception. I mean, we're just obsessed with outcomes for our customers, our care providers. And that's mainly fundamentally driven by improving outcomes for their clients, the residents, the service users, the people who use their services, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So, I mean, Tony, going back a moment. I mean, growing up in a country that was in civil war for so long, And you stated yourself it was sort of like a state to survive. That was the goal, was to survive. Moving to UK and then moving back with probably the dreams and aspirations that the country would settle, and then you've seen it happen again. Has that developed you into someone who is very thankful for life? So what I'm seeing there is some people would take what I would class as a victim mentality in that. Why is this happening to me? But you seem to have looked at it and gone, no, I'm going to use this to be a pillar of strength for who I become.
I think that's a great point, and that kind of sums up the thinking, the attitude. And this is the same attitude that pervades when we go into a challenge service, for example, as a consultancy, because we look at, oh, here's a problem, so here's a weakness, here's a set of problems that are there. We see that as an opportunity to kind of make the client, to make the care service thrive in the long term, to kind of build on what that means, what that could look like, Paul, is where so typically we could be in a situation where a care home is faced with closure, it's rated inadequate, and then we go in and do some work and then get it out. But what's interesting is a lot of people then say, oh, like, okay, you've now fixed the quality, thank you very much, type of thing. But then the business has suffered in the meantime. And what we find is we've used that, and a lot of the thesis is often, oh, it's a business which has had reputational issues as a result of quality issues, regulatory, the ratings have been negative or it's been red, and now it's only just come out into the amber, or luckily, if they're lucky and have done a lot of hard work, it can go into the green as well. And we've seen a lot of that going from red to green straight, rather than the traditional red to amber to green. But then the business has suffered. The business is not going to turn around quite quickly, is the general thinking. It would take a year or even 2 years. But we take what we tend to do is then we have this approach where once we've turned it green, we are able to go and knock on people's doors and say, look, this was where it was, having an honest conversation and saying, and this is green, and it's a very sustainable green, shall we say. That is one of the best opportunities for a care home to go from that red to improve. It doesn't have to be green, it can be amber, but here's an opportunity to have an honest conversation with the commissioners and say, look, we've improved. And generally, commissioners are very welcoming. And sometimes it's a question of having that conversation at the right time with them and say, and what's interesting is, because and this is where we've turned an adverse situation into a positive a lot of the time, all the time. I've seen this happen without exception, especially if it's managed quite carefully and quickly enough. It doesn't have to be quick, but appropriately at the right times. But where suddenly, because the spotlight was on the home when things were not doing great, but now things are doing well, everyone's now heard about it. So then they are willing to kind of back it. So there are commissioners, there are people who are willing to back it and say, look, let's fill the home up, sorry to use that term, but that's often a term that's used in those situations. So we've seen situations where there was a situation where there's a home which was a 180-bedded home, which was kept, half of it was kept closed. It had never reached about 50% occupancy, so it was less than 90 beds. And then COVID came, and everyone was thinking, oh gosh, we can't admit residents to the care home, and now it's going to get even worse. And then we went, so the provider contacted me a couple of days after COVID, 25th of March 2020, 2 days after Boris's lockdown, and then said, oh, we've got this home, which is already it's less than half full. So what do we do? We were able to go, so I said, okay, I've never done something like this. It's outside my comfort zone. Certainly it was, the provider was also very supportive. And we then had an opportunity to go and have a conversation with the local authority, the NHS, the body at the time. And lo and behold, we were able to then have a third of this other wing, this wing which was built, newly constructed and kept mothballed for 3 years, a very high-spec, lovely wing of 90 beds. We were able to fill 31 beds out of it. Then they were quite happy. The commissioners were so happy that we filled the next floor, the second floor. So the ground floor was filled, the first floor was filled, and the second floor was filled, and there was a waiting list. But within 6 months. So that adverse situation was used in a positive way. But we do that all the time. That's been the approach all the time to try and make it work. But ultimately, this is not about pounds and pence. It's about getting the right outcomes. Like we found solutions for multiple stakeholders. So the situation in that who benefited there was people who were able to get discharged into this unit from the hospital, freeing up hospital beds. And then before they go back to their own homes, or they did before they go back to a care home. Some of them couldn't go back, so then we had another wing that was set up to support them. But the business did well, the provider did well, their homes, there was more recruitment, there was more staff that had people who had jobs. And that was a time, remember, Paul, when, airlines were grounded, pubs were closed, restaurants closed, hairdressers were closed. And we found the opportunity to kind of get people who had prior experience in care to come in. So this is why on the 25th of March 2020, I had that call from the provider. On the 27th, we had the conversation and agreement in principle from the local authority and NHS and the regulatory support, everyone's blessings. And the following Friday, it was up and running with a full team of staff and management and so on in the middle of COVID. And so sorry to take a lot of time.
No, it's your results. One of the things that's so impressive about you, Tony, and your company is the results that you get. And the only way that you could get those results is if you actually, sorry if there's any children listening, gave a shit about what you do. So what I always see from you is you are invested into other people's businesses as if it's your own business, and you're fighting for that survival still to get it to where it needs to be. And that's completely different from most consultancy companies who are, we come in, we do what we do, and then we leave. You always seem to have this, you're always involved in it in some way, shape, or form, even into the future.
Thank you, Paul, for saying that. And we are, and I think sometimes we end up in almost project managing it, for lack of a better term, where we take on that, and we also take on that project risk, because some of the projects we take on, where these are challenging situations. Within less than a month, or just about a month ago, I had to get involved. I was going to my niece's wedding in Canada, and I've never been to Canada, and I was only going there for 2 days. And I had to jump on a call at 8 o'clock in the morning because there was a threat that the care home was going to lose its contract. And then there was one option potentially at the time on the table was us getting involved in managing, as in Fulcrum getting involved in managing the service. So we put our hands up. I haven't been to the service, but I had the conviction that the team could do this, as in the Fulcrum team, the colleagues that we have. We got some really really skilled people, experts in their own fields, whether with regulatory backgrounds, dementia, clinical, specialists of all sorts, who can finance, marketing, HR, etc. So who can come in and then make that difference. So we said, okay, we put our hands up and said, we'll do it. And then then the result of that large scale investigation, if one would call it, or or safeguarding meeting, is that they said, oh, give us a few hours, we'll consult within ourselves and come back. And then they came back and said, look, we're going to let you come in and manage the home. And as a result, we're not going to cancel the contract, which can, and as you know, when a contract gets cancelled and people get moved out, there are fatalities. That's a known fact, which is probably not discussed a lot, or there is not much evidence or studies out there that goes onto it. But we know anecdotally, and this is one of the reasons why I set up, was something that happened back in 2010 when I saw this happen at one of the homes that I came across, which I subsequently got involved in turning around, where there was a number of fatalities. That's what made me set up Fulcrum. I thought I need to see how I can make a difference, but do it in a sustainable way. That's right.
Okay, that's a great last point for me to come back at you on, because I was thinking as you were talking there, we're kind of hearing all the success side of where Fulcrum's got to now. And we know sort of like 8 years ago, when you decided to set up your own business, what has happened over those 8 years for you to become who you are, and certainly leading the market within health and social care in terms of consultancy management services. In terms of making that step, you mentioned you worked for HC1, which is one of the largest care providers in the UK. and I think it was Regal Care as well as ops director. So to make that step over and say, I'm going to start my own business at that age, what spurred you on? Was it always something you were going to do? I mean, you'd been involved in a lot of startup companies, you'd been involved in a lot of turnarounds. At some point there, you looked at it and went, it's time to make the move and do this for myself. What was that? You mentioned the vehicle was you had looked at cases, you'd looked at fatalities, things like that. I thought, we need to do this. Was it something that you sort of like just sat there and thought, it's time? Did you have conversations with your family around it? Was it other people that you knew that's like were giving you advice and support? What made you jump?
Interesting question. Thank you, Paul. So 10 years ago, after HC1, I had joined a company. There's a private equity company which approached me to kind of set up a very successful group. Signature group was set up by them, and
Right.
they wanted to set up another group altogether. So they approached me to be the CEO of that group. And there were two care homes in Scotland that they were going to buy, and then that deal unwound at the last minute. So here I was the CEO of a care company which didn't have any care homes. So that then gave me an opportunity. And in care is something which changes a lot. The guidance, lots change in care, although care is fundamentally what it is. That gave me the opportunity, or that situation led me to ask for permission to kind of do some consulting on the side to keep my skills sharp. And that's when I got into consulting back in 2015, but on my own, just me, myself, and I. And it was about, making those were my first steps into consulting. However, I could not commit to consulting because so it was more to kind of keep my skills sharpened whilst this company
Yeah.
started acquiring care homes, which then I could then be this I could then manage, if that makes sense. So, however, that process, this also coincided with Brexit, and there was a short supply of care homes in 2016. So all this happened at the same time. So in 2017, that project got shelved. So I was just waiting, and in the meantime, I had gotten a taste of consulting. But it was for me, it was also about having a purpose, because where I had worked in previously, I always used to wonder. I was involved in turning around care homes, and that's what I did. And all the care homes got turned around, with maybe one exception, or as such. But every single care home got turned around. But the one thing that was in my mind, that was a burning question in my mind, was, can these improvements be sustained? Because it's almost like you come in, get it fixed, and then it goes back to the mainstream organization and its processes, systems. And would they be sustained? That was the question. And for me, it was always about sustainability, and it was about, and I would always keep an eye on, how is this care home doing that I worked with, say, 2 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, because that's been my interest, passion, if you want to call it. And if it were to slip, then I would kind of hold myself accountable, and that's my own litmus test, if you want to call it. So that really is the litmus test, and that's for me to kind of prove to myself. Nobody else is checking. Nobody else is saying, "Oh, Tony was involved here 5 years ago," but it's my own barometer how things pan out. So for me, when the other project came to a halt, when it got wound down, that then gave me, and I couldn't wait for that to wind down. That gave me the impetus to kind of set up a consultancy with a different view. One, it would kind of make a difference to care providers in a sustainable, so that those improvements would be sustained, and we would make sure that we would be the guardians of that, and we would also look at that as our litmus test all along, regardless of how long we had been involved in far back. And then secondly, it also gave the opportunity to kind of also get together a group of colleagues, like-minded colleagues, who would have the same passions, who would have the integrity, who would have the passion for, care, and, people who use the services that we work with, and who are also obsessed with outcomes for the clients who engage us. So it's about integrity, it's about passion for, the client groups we work with, and it's about it's about outcomes, tangible outcomes for every stakeholder that's in the stakeholder group who we are involved in. So that was what it was, and that was the philosophy, that was the thinking, and that's where so here's an opportunity to set it up and run, and that's always been the driving force. That's what kind of makes me get out of bed and do what it is. We probably face the toughest of projects, toughest
Yeah,
of weeks, but that's really given the impetus, Paul, to kind of make it up.
absolutely. And when you look back, Tony, I've done this myself. There was so many things at a time in my life where I thought this would happen, and something went wrong. It didn't happen. And when you look back, you go, thank goodness that didn't happen.
Sure.
It didn't become a reality. And now they're not always problems. They can be. I look back on mine, for example. I remember a very bad time where I'd started this construction company. It was doing well, and then it went into liquidation. You sort of like sat there thinking the world has come to an end. Or when I decided that I didn't want to be a registered care manager anymore, actually resigning the post and wondering what on earth I was going to do. And there's so many occasions. I even was about to become an MP. So I actually went to the whole interviewing process and that, and was going to be offered a safe seat,
Okay.
and then decided at the last minute, no, I don't want to do that. Now, if I had chosen any of those paths, or the construction company had gone into liquidation, I had become an MP, even at the very start of my career as a jockey, if I'd remained small and was able to do that, I wouldn't have CBAT, I wouldn't have confident competency, I wouldn't have SBL care. You kind of look at it and you go, actually, things do happen for a reason, and you've just got to keep going and keep going, which brings me to the next point. So that becoming the CEO, it probably sounded really good. A private equity firm, they're going to buy up care homes. I'm going to run these. And then as you started to sort of like say, I'll do this consultancy on the side while that's going on, your dream at that moment in time is you're going to be the CEO of this big care group. But all of a sudden you start to fall in love with the other thing. And it's the other thing that's brought you to who you are today. So I think sometimes I see people will get really obsessed and upset when something hasn't worked out. And you're kind of saying to them, yeah, but wait to see what's going to happen. Because if you continue with the same work ethic, the same passion, the same desire, it will come to you at some point, and that will be your life. And I think you've found that with the development of Fulcrum. We all started on our own. I look at the training company, there's 300 people across the country, and it was me. It was me running around delivering that training. So I always look at the team and go, no matter what happens, you'll never be able to destroy me, because I still remember that day of running around just trying to get training courses to deliver that I was doing. So I'll always go back there if I have to. But I think where I'm sort of like trying to get to here is, and this is sort of like a message for anybody that's coming up, because from your story, so many things have happened to you that have pushed you in a direction. But I think the one thing that I see in you, Tony, is your work ethic. And I think too many times I hear some people thinking that it'll just happen for them. But with you, what I see is someone that's pushed themselves to go out and get it.
Thank you, Paul. That's again very kind of you to say that. I mean, I think it's not me. I've never been seen as a driven person. My parents never saw me as ambitious. In fact, they were very worried about it, and that still applies to my wife, my long-suffering wife as well. But yeah, so it's just been the intent, the cause has been trying to get these outcomes, Paul. I mean, that drives, and because we have quite a lot at the same time happening at the same time. I mean, this week, for example, I visited quite a few homes, going left, right, and center, met up with colleagues, come up with thrashed out problems within the organization, in our client organizations, our own organization, and to see how can we do things better. What can we do to kind of do it's not just tweaks, but even sometimes changing something fundamentally, the thinking. So, and we've had a great success in the last 24 hours, for example, where there was an impasse with the care provider and the local authority, and I think we just cracked it last evening. So there is always that. I think it's just trying to find solutions and getting those outcomes, and that the energy that it gives is like unbelievable. That's all I could say, because it just breeds more energy, that motivation to kind of get to that result, that end result, and see people having the right care. See staff who are happy in that care setting, because it's not the easiest sector to work in. It's
Absolutely.
much maligned by the media, doesn't do any favors, and there's always a lot of, it's not a great out there. It's perceived misconceived, as in perceived, there are misconceptions around it. So I think that's where it's just the results kind of then give you tremendous energy to go on to the next one and next one, however difficult, challenging it is. So even yesterday, while I was talking to you about an impulse, I also had the opportunity to see another service which is on its last legs, and I was told the day before yesterday, oh, it's on its last legs. People are having to be moved out, so I had to go and see it for myself to see is there anything we can do, and there is a plan on the back of it, and I'm hopeful. A month or two down the line, everything is intact. People have improved things, and all again, stakeholders, every stakeholder, the residents, the staff team, the management team, the owners would all benefit out of it. So that just keeps driving. That's the real driver, to be honest. It's the results that we've seen, the real world results that we have seen.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. But I love "but" because it's a nice deletion word. So that's where I drag it back a bit. In terms of, if I look at you and I think, right, most people are running businesses and they're providing a product that they hope people will buy and enjoy and love and get value from. Yeah. So your stress is within your own internal business to create that product. Your business is actually dealing with every other business's stress. No business is going to come to you and say, we are doing amazingly well, profits are soaring, our retention rate on staff are fantastic. What can you do to help us? The phone calls that you get are people in dire straits, fear of losing their businesses, fear of losing their livelihood, fear of potential legal challenges that may come their way. They're at the most normally stressful time of their life. So you have to then absolve, their stress, almost therapy in the first instance, to calm the situation down, and then provide an action plan and solution. So you will have your internal stresses of your own business in terms of its role and what you do, but then you have the stresses of every other business that signs up. How do you cope with that? How do you deal with that? How does your head not explode?
It does feel like it at times. Actually, no, it's about having your. I think I've always looked at the end outcome, and I've seen there are challenges in between. Particularly when we get involved in a challenge business, everyone's stressed because they've tried everything. Everyone's at the end of their tether, so everyone needs results like yesterday. But when they, a few months down the line, it's a completely different conversation. But it's about, but it's a great question once again. It's about the stresses. It can be challenging, but I think just keeping an eye on that end result is what has driven us. And because we've done this so many times, we've seen the same, almost like a template. This is exactly the same thing. People will say, oh, ours is different. Every care service is different. Every locality is different. So the staff teams and all that, there no two services are the same. I got told off by a partner of ours who said, when I said, oh, it's like a McDonald's type of template that we use, and he said, no, it's not McDonald's, it's Pret or Leon or whatever. Because I was asked to rebrand the template name, so to say. But essentially, we've done it before. It's the same methodology. It's that methodology that works. It's that engagement with stakeholders, which I think where we make a difference, Paul, is you talked about action plans. Where we make a difference is engage with stakeholders and orient everyone in the same direction. You'd be surprised what that little thing, how far that goes, because everyone looks at, oh, here's the regulator's report, and these are the issues that have been, here are 8 requirements, shall we say, or 10 requirements as the case may be, and they'll do an action plan that covers the 10. But there's a lot more that happens. It's that whole picture. So it might really be 15 when we do our own assessment and then understand that's what it is. But then it's also orienting everyone in that towards that, and then that goes a long way, because then everyone's working in the same direction, because everyone wants the same. They don't want poor care, for residents or their loved ones, or they don't want to be in a situation where working in a home which is rated red, or has a closure notice on it. So I think everyone's got. It's surprising how that area, trying to align everyone in the same direction, all stakeholders, the families, the residents, the staff, the local authorities, CQC, or regulator, whichever area, because we work in England, Scotland, and Wales. So yeah, it's just exactly all that goes a long way, Paul. So that makes a difference, and I think that also makes it easier, and hence the head doesn't explode as a result, only because we just keep our eyes on the prize.
In terms of listening to you there, and you always come across this way to me every time we've met, spoken. You're a very calm person. A lot of people would have anxiety through the roof in some of the situations that you deal with, and you're almost like that. I don't want to do a disservice to people who do this job, but you're almost like the person that goes in to deactivate the bomb. You can stay calm in that storm. And I think you have to do that within your line of work to stop everybody else around you going into panic mode. But has that always been a leadership style of yours, or is it something that you've learned?
Uh, I've always been, so this probably then goes back to the lack of ambition. So I've been quite satisfied with what I've had, so I just take things as is. And I take a very common, if you want to call it a commonplace term, a cliche. I just get on with it. Like, we are where we are. Just get on with it, get it done. So yeah. I can that's the way I take it. So if it's bad, if it's a closure notice, if some really bad things have happened in a service, then that's what it is. So we take it from there. We can't rework the past. We can only go forward, draw a line, move forward, and try and put things right. So that's all it is. That's what it is. But yeah, I mean, I wish my wife said the same thing about me being calm. But yeah.
But it's something I had to learn. So as you probably know, my origins are Scotland. So I'm a Glaswegian in terms of born and growing up, certainly up to about the age of 10. My dad was a firecracker. He was hot-tempered, and the people around me were. So my original management style actually did get things done, but in more of an aggressive way. I think I actually led by fear more than anything. And then I had to really start to learn that doesn't work in all situations, or it will work short term. But it's sticking a plaster over an open wound and hoping it heals. At some point, it's going to come back and bite you. So I had to really start to learn different behavioral skills, different management skills, seek out different mentors and guidance to look at and go, that's who I want to be more like, and start to mold myself. And I think also with experience, and age, because we're all getting older, with age now, when I look at certain things now and see the younger people within my organizations start to look at it as if it's catastrophic, I'm going, no, it's not catastrophic, right? This has happened before. And here's the outcomes that are likely to occur. And here's how we deal with them. And you just see them looking at you. How can you be so calm? You go, it's actually years and years of being in these positions. So I kind of think for yourself, yes, you've come across as very calm, but there's a lot of experience locked inside there. There's a lot of life locked inside there that allows you to look at situations and go, we can handle this. It's not as bad as you think.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've had the benefit. So last year, Paul, we had worked with about 412 services. So that gives us some grounding. And previous year, and it's only growing. It's continuing to grow. And it's not the growth itself, growth for the sake of it, but it's more, the way I see it, it's more good things that, this is more opportunity to do good out there. That's the way I see it. And that's what excites me. And that's why I think, and we have a lot of insight on the back of, as you said, we've been able to calibrate ourselves. We kind of get into sharp end of things. So we kind of face that on behalf of others, our clients and partners, and we do that. But again, now that we know that, it's also about trying to preempt. It's not trying to be that knight in shining armor. It's about also making sure that it doesn't happen. I think that's where we've done a lot of work, which we don't tend to get. It doesn't probably get talked out about much. It's not so much that rags to riches story. It's not the Hollywood drama material, because things are ticking along quite well. But yeah, so I think that we've got a lot of insight that, and we kind of, as you quite rightly said, as with your case, that you kind of know there are certain, it can play out in certain ways, and worst case, best case, etc. And we've kind of dealt with those, and we try and manage it. We are not saying we are never ever going to be cocky and say we've done it before, so we're going to do it all over again, because every situation is different, as we discussed before. Yeah, so
Absolutely. And we've had, as an industry, industries across the world, you're right, especially in the UK, you've had to deal with Brexit, you've had to deal with COVID, you've had to deal with economic recessions, changes in government, changes in policy, changes in the way the regulator inspects. It's like a continuation. Now we've got immigration, visas, right to work access, which our industry heavily relies on. There's so many challenges get thrown at this industry all the time that it's almost hard to keep up with that. And you can see why businesses get impacted and suffer. If we look at local authority rates and what they're actually paying out now, it is madness to think that that covers the cost of care. So I think you're now into, in terms of a position as a business, some people may turn around, and I've had this, say, but if it's your business, then you should be able to look after it. If you need help in your business, then you're obviously not good enough for the business. And that's wrong, because there's experts in different areas. If I was to look at my businesses, I don't know everything there is to know about running a business. I might know enough in certain areas, but there's certain people I have to go to and say, how do you do this? How do we get out of that? And I think that's where companies like yourselves will always have that place for people to reach out to, that's not their bread and butter. Because most people, particularly most people that started off owning care homes, and we're talking about the smaller and mid-size, they were really good at operational care. That was their passion. Before equity investors and that came in, that's what they done. But no one talked about tax laws or legal implications or regulations or anything like that. They just delivered good standards of care. But most people are actually, and you'll find this, I'm sure, in fact, I'll ask you to talk on it, that a lot of people now are getting downgraded on inspections, and it's actually nothing to do with the delivery of care. It's everything outside of it.
No, you're absolutely right. So we see this, and it really pains me personally to kind of see this, because we've seen this for the longest possible. I've seen this for the longest possible time, for over 15 years. I get told, oh, CQC has changed their approach, or the regulator has changed their approach. But it's just, and you're absolutely right. Largely, it's not, I'm very pleased that it's not about the delivery of care. It's everything outside. But sometimes it's that lack of leadership that on the floor, which staff, care colleagues, everyone, whether it's the kitchen, the maintenance, everyone needs that leadership to kind of drive things forward. But it's not about that. Not that people don't have a caring nature. Sometimes a poor culture can set in when the leadership isn't great, or it's a closed culture, or it's the leader is not sitting there, doesn't have the right values, or is not evidencing or living and breathing by it, shall we say. So I think that's where it gets a bit complicated, or it gets really difficult. But generally, as you said, care delivery is phenomenal, and people do care, and it's not the easiest job to do. Most people would shy away from it. And here's this segment, a relatively small segment of the population, which is delivering care, caring for people who are vulnerable. And I'm just so grateful and also very respectful of that segment. We would always hold them in high esteem. We would always value what they, that's what kind of drives me. And then all we have been, is that support. The reason why I named the company Fulcrum was because, I think the care community, the care profession is practically like, and the management teams, everyone included, the providers included, are like a lever that for within the community that shifts this really heavy loads as what levers do. I mean, every lever, however, needs that fulcrum, a pivot, and that's what we are. We are just there to support. We are not the lever itself that does that hard work, but we are there to support as needed so to shift the loads. So sometimes when it comes to these difficult situations. So yeah, that's what the whole ethos has been, and we are not, we are not going to be any more important than the carers out there, the chefs out there, the kitchen assistants, the cleaners, nurses, anyone. So that's what the ethos has been. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, kudos to that profession.
Tony, are you worried? I mean, this is great because I'm speaking to someone that's so calm and so processed. Are you worried? Do you fear for the industry in the next few years?
I certainly do. I mean, the industry is underfunded. Sometimes care costs. When you this has been said before. I've been saying it for the last 15 years. Looking at a Travelodge or a Premier Inn, they would just give accommodation, sometimes not even food, and there is certainly no care wrapped around. And here's an industry which has that. The economics of it don't make sense. So I do worry about the economics, which are then leading to other pressures. So people talk about staffing, then that leads to every other pressure. So it's underfunded, and that's fundamentally, I think, the problem. And then of course it's how care providers are seen as well. So that it doesn't help that the media paints a certain picture. It's easy to find fault. I go into good rated homes or outstanding rated homes, which are, I wouldn't rate them requires improvement, and probably some of them even inadequate. But in terms of the care philosophy, and we constantly end up supporting homes which are being downgraded from outstanding or good to inadequate, very, very frequently. A lot of times this year. But I don't think it's the approach, the regulator that gets blamed. They're not to be blamed. It's a fundamental issue. It's the way it's been funded, and that's what it is. And then the regulator has a role to play. The commissioners have a role to play. But yeah, so yeah. So
I mean, in terms of what's happening with the industry, I think they've got potential of staffing issues reigniting if they ever went away in the first place. Regulatory changes, and you're absolutely right, financial pressures that sit within them, and then the public perception, as you mentioned. But the public perception is based on one or two instances that you see highlighted in the press per year, when there's thousands, billions of care hour deliveries that is happening all across the UK. So, it's very easy. You're always going to be able to be wrong, but still very easy to highlight 1 or 2 hours across hundreds of millions and go, sure, this represents the industry. It doesn't represent the industry. And I don't necessarily think the regulator is doing the utmost to actually support that. They're actually supporting more the negative narrative, because what I'm seeing is it's so easy now to get requires improvement, and actually becoming much more difficult to get good. Now, just those words and terminology alone, if I wasn't from the industry and someone said to me, oh, that care home up the road, it got requires improvement from the regulatory body, you're thinking that must be a mess. There's no way I would put mum and dad in there. But ultimately, it could be that some of the care plans, the one page on the front said something slightly different to one page on the back, or that they hadn't done all the supervisions, but yet they spoke to everybody that lived there and worked there, and he said, we love working here, we love living here, they look after us tremendous. So that's not a real representation. And therefore I look at it and go, the regulatory body should be doing more to support the positive outcomes instead of the negative outcomes.
I certainly believe that. I've always seen that. I mean, I get told the regulator has been unfair, is not, has downgraded us, and number of claims, assertions made about the regulator. I think the regulator is a friend that, maybe because it gets published in the public domain, and there is that doesn't particularly help from a
Yeah.
business point of view. But I think that is a function which is certainly needed, and it's there for that reason, of course.
I think they could change the words. I think
Yeah,
there's a big gap in people's understanding between good and requires improvement. So ultimately, you've got inadequate, which would be like don't touch it with a barge pole in people's perception. Requires improvement, it's not performing good. Oh, well, it's all right then. And then you got outstanding. The gaps between those are enormous in terms of wording. And I think that's the bit that could be looked into to give the public that different. Yes, they are a good home, but there's areas where they require improvement.
absolutely. But I suppose the funding pressures also then seep into the regulators, and
Yeah,
then that itself creates pressures. So this is where you hear a lot of the time that post COVID, the number of inspections didn't take place in England
yeah,
particularly, and that has then created fairly, I mean, effectively reports from 5 years ago or more. I mean, we've seen 7 years with
yeah,
good and outstanding reports where, so they're not fit for purpose, but it's not, I mean, every organization has its pressures. The regulator also have their pressures, as we have seen and heard in the media. So there have been
yeah.
media reports, and the Penny Dash report, for example, of the Care Quality Commission was published, but that puts them on the back foot, and they need some time to, of course, regroup and come back on that. But we've seen wherever that inspection has happened, we've seen that it's not been unfair. Largely, most cases we've seen it's not been unfair. It's where there is some level of complacency has set in
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
because I think we all need to work together. That's why I was saying it's about
absolutely.
all the stakeholders. It's not about they're all there for a reason, and
Yeah,
they all make it happen. Whether the banks or the investment firms, or even they may be painted as profiteering and so on, but everyone makes it happen. And it's great to see that the UK market has seen some investment as well from the US and other parts of the world, and that, and that's a positive. We are seeing a lot of that happen. But again, we work with all these stakeholders, and that's where we see that silver lining. But I am worried, having said that,
yeah.
because there
No,
has
I,
been
I
some.
think so. But all I'd say is we've been here before and we've thought the industry is coming to, and we've got major problems. The industry is going to be ended. Social care, particularly, has this amazing resilience to always get through it, as it did in COVID, keeping a lot of people alive. Okay, Tony, I've veered right off. I always do. I knew I would when I started talking to you. I think we've learned so much, but there's a couple of things I need to draw back on to wrap this up and let you get on with your working day. So, looking back on time now, Tony, I want you to particularly think about when you started Fulcrum to where you are right now. Is there anything in there that you would look back and go, I would have made that decision quicker, or I'd have changed my reason or attitude towards something there that would have propelled it much quicker? What pain point do you
So
think?
there's lots week on week, including this week. It's a continuous learning process all along, whether it's on a particular project or as an organization. Fulcrum, as things keep changing, we've grown somewhat, in terms of size, in terms of revenues. We probably will double this year from last year, and it's not been about the revenues at all, but it's just a reflection of how many people we support, because that's the easiest reflection, because we have lots of projects going on at one time. They can start at different times and end at different times. So we could never, it's not easy to keep track of how many we do at any one point in time. So the revenues are used in that sense. But so could we have done lots differently? Yeah, I mean, all the time I keep thinking, all the time it's about trying to learn from those, and then so it could be even the way the organization has grown. That we probably had to rethink. We had a bit of a rethink earlier this year, much of this year, to see how we can rework everything, almost dismantle things, and then put it back together again to deliver better service for the care providers we work with, and hence their stakeholders, their staff, their residents, their relatives, etc. And we've also had, as we said, I mean, it's great to see more investment coming into the country, and we are trying to support it as best as possible. particularly the overseas investments where, where they've had to, there have been various pressures. So, for example, that we've done some complex registrations with the regulator for investment firms just so that it can go along as
Yeah.
quickly as possible, as smoothly as possible, shall we say. So, and we've always been that collaborative thing. We are kind of we work alongside legal colleagues, financial colleagues, um, investment colleagues, and regulatory colleagues to make sure, and of course, our own operations colleagues and our clients' operations colleagues to make it work. So, and because we are very operations focused, we see a lot of things that we could do better all along. So, it's always been about trying to remove the bottlenecks, make
Yeah.
sure that we can streamline things and make it go quicker. So yeah, so it's constantly, it could be, how can we do an action plan better? We've done hundreds and thousands of action plans. We've
Yeah.
seen that, but there's always some learning somewhere. There's always a way to do it
And it
better.
will always happen. I mean, one of the things that I tried to teach myself over time was you only learn from failures. That's the only way you can possibly learn. So just learn how to fail fast. That's it. Use your gut. And if you think something's not right, something is telling you at that point, we've been here before in a similar situation. What happened? So I kind of like to delve into the subconscious mind at that point and say, give me back that memory of this occasion. So yeah, that's what I always say to the team. We can't be frightened to fail, because if we are, we will take away innovation. And that innovation may be what we're looking back in 10 years' time and saying, without that, we wouldn't be where we are now. But at the same point, if something's not going right and something doesn't feel right about it, how do we stop it quickly and pivot and divert to something else? And I think that's what I've learned in business.
You're quite right. And I think one thing with us is because the nature of what we do is about diagnosing and working with other people's problems. Sometimes
Yeah.
we can be a bit, we can be slow in dealing with our own problems because we put our clients'
Yeah.
interests. So sometimes I do feel that way. But having said that, just recognizing that we have a problem is probably the first step, and listing it out. And there's always, we're continuously trying to improve on that front. It's about keeping colleagues happy who works with us, and the care providers who work with us, and it's just balancing lots of our own stakeholders. Not just, we talked about our client stakeholders, our care provider stakeholders, but this is about our own stakeholders. So we've always tried to do that. Sometimes we do it well. Sometimes there'll be some blips, and we think, oh, we could have done this a whole lot quicker. But it's always a learning, and we've always embraced that learning all along.
Do you ever wish, Tony, you'd taken the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job, the 5.5 weeks holiday a year, go home, switch off, deal with it the next day? Right.
I don't think I'll ever end up doing that. Even working for 9 to 5 businesses, we've always tried to kind of, I've always given it more than that 9 to 5. My family has written me off as not being that kind of person.
Similar. Okay. Right. Let's actually wrap this up. So, if someone was looking at this, a young person's watching this, they're thinking, I'd love to set up my own business one day. I'm passionate about certain thing. What sort of 3 things might you turn around to them and say, you really need to be committed to this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose to start with that, I really think integrity is very important. It's a small world out there, whether it's care or anything else out there. So I think integrity is important. And if you didn't have that in your DNA, then it's not going to be that easy.
Yeah,
because you
absolutely.
get found out in some form, and we hear and see lots of stories about that. So, and then also having a real true passion for it, rather than just saying, passion is a word which is again a bit of a cliche, because it gets bandied about quite a bit. But have a real passion, and just is this something you would the why of it, like, is this something that you would get out of bed and do every day in and day out? And it's never about the money. Is what that I think
I agree.
the money follows.
Yeah.
Is generally so. It's and you kind of then become a bit detached with that money thing. I feel that's my own view. I may be people who drive the flash cars, that now that might say, oh, this guy's like doesn't know what he's talking about. And that doesn't mean that people who drive flash cars are, are doing it for the wrong reasons.
Remember, you do a bit of work for private equity investors, so
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So yeah, it's about it's being truly committed to it, as in just it's not it can be hard work. Hard work is not a bad thing, and it's that perseverance to kind of get to that. It's being perseverant. You'll have
I
lots of
think as well,
challenges.
yeah, and celebrate those successes, even if they're tiny.
Absolutely.
I said this to Tim. We had last, I think the week before last, it was just one of those weeks where everything seemed to be falling in line, even things that we hadn't heard of in 3 months. All of a sudden, we got the email to confirm it. And it was just one of those weeks where it was all going right. And I pulled the team in and I said, celebrate this week. These weeks can be 1 in 52 of the year. So don't waste the opportunity to go mad, cheer, wherever. This is your hard work of 52 weeks of the year rolled into 1 week. So we will come in Monday and there'll be a new issue. There'll be a new problem. There'll be another email that comes in that we've got to deal with. So just for this week, just be
Absolutely.
high-fiving each other for
Yeah, absolutely. I think celebrating success, and
yeah.
again, like the team that we work, it's always very collaborative. I felt whether it's clients, colleagues, etc. And I think that delivers great results. So, yeah. So it's
Absolutely. But I totally agree with what you said. The money will follow. So I see too many people that come and talk to me and sort of like, they just think you've made it. And you're sort of like saying, no, it's not about the money. It is literally because if I showed you all the loans that sat behind that, you'd probably be panicking as much as what I can sometimes. But ultimately, I look at the money, and this may sound really obnoxious, but it's like a game of Monopoly to me. It's like you're playing this game and you truly believe you're doing well for it. But at no point are you sat there thinking, I'm going to be on a yacht sailing around Monaco. And I even think people that do go on to become billionaires, at no point did they think that would happen to them. It just happened. Um,
absolutely, and
but
it's great.
they
Good on
loved
them.
what they believed, what they were doing, and the money followed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've
Okay.
always felt that. And that's my advice to my kids as well. So, to integrity, passion, and, yeah,
Me
and
too.
perseverance. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. We ask every guest this before we wrap it up. So if you had the option to share a lunch with any three individuals, past or present, who are you choosing and what you hoping to learn from it or get from it?
I'm going to be boring here, Paul. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to go with my family, which
I
I
love
don't
that.
get
I love that.
because I've got three. I've got two boys and my wife, so they're the three. I might add the
That
dog in,
yeah,
but honestly, that truly is what kind of that's been they've been behind me so all along. So that's all that
that's your
matters.
anchor.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's say yeah, absolutely.
Love that. And do you know what? As mad as it sounds, Tony, you're not the first person to say that. Um,
I'm sure.
because I think what it is the commitment that we show, the passion that we show, the perseverance that we show, you are asking others to sacrifice things to allow you to do that. So I think when you get that time to spend that time with them, you have to give them you and you have to enjoy being around it because they are going to be the ones that can switch the light off on you and humble you to a degree and
Sure.
remind you that you're still Tony from Sri Lanka, who's an only child, was probably spoiled more than most people by the parents, right?
No
That
such luck.
that worked in all these top businesses, but you're still Tony. And that's kind of what you need those people around you just to
Yeah,
remind you.
no, true.
Tony, I've absolutely loved this. I mean, we've spoke for an age, and I know I've kept you, so apologies for that for the overrun. But I just think you're a very fascinating person. I've always been fascinated by you in terms of just not just the calmness, but the mannerism and how you project yourself. I think you're an inspiration to many, and I don't come across people that have a bad word to say about you. In fact, even for this podcast, people were saying to me, "Get Tony on, get Tony on." Um, so yeah, considering you don't do these, I think if we're number one on the chalkboard, um, I think people are going to be asking for you to appear on other things. So I think you've got a problem going forward. So get out of that one. But loved it, Tony. Thank you very
Thank you, Paul.
much.
Thank you very much for asking. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I always enjoy meeting up and chatting with you. So, yeah, thank you.
Lovely. Okay, that's it for this episode of Behind the Briefcase. You know, if you look at it on reflection, there's a lot of things that we can take from today. Do you know the one thing I'm going to take from it in the most of? And there was lots of things spoken. The importance of resilience, and right from Tony's childhood, resilience was set in there, and that resilience brings a humbleness as well, and a gratitude. And I think if you have humbleness and gratitude and resilience in life, you'll tackle most problems. So there's a phrase that I absolutely love, and it's "this too shall pass." And I think that's what Tony's basically saying to you there, that when you're going through good times, it'll pass and bad times will come again. And when you're going through bad times, it'll pass and good times will come through it. So just stay calm, steer the ship, and keep going in the direction that you set out to go in right from the start. We'll be back very soon with another episode and a great guest from behind the briefcase. So for now, enjoy your week, and I'll catch you soon. Thank you very much.